Hang for just a second and I'll introduce us.
Okay.
Hi, this is Daniel Kellogg. I'm the president of Young Concert Artists. And today I am going to talk with double bass player Xavier Foley. Xavier, hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well. So you are a double bass soloist, a chamber musician, and also a composer. Separate from all of that, you're sort of an entrepreneur, a business owner, a creator of ideas, and hopefully today we'll talk about all of those things.
Sounds good.
But let me just begin by asking, where are you and where have you been for the last 3 months?
I've been in Philly for the last 3 months.
All right, and so you are living in Philadelphia, let's see, maybe the first thing I'll ask is, tell us a little bit about when you came on the YCA roster and what you remember from the auditions.
It was very scary. I didn't expect to win because I'm a bass player, and it seemed like a really hard audition, and yeah.
What year was it? Do you remember?
2016.
2016. And
Yep.
I should have counted. I know you're at least the second bass player on the roster. Is there more than just two of you?
There's me and Doc Shun, something like that.
Well, that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
that actually raises sort of a simple question, which is how often are double bass players working as soloists?
Not as often as a violinist or cellist.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So it's a pretty rare thing. And so how did you come to be a soloist? How did you come to decide you wanted to audition for Young Concert Artists?
Auditioning for Young Concert Artists was a way for me to play my own music in the concert halls, along with classical.
Okay.
But I didn't see any other solution to having the opportunity to do that. So Young Concert Artists seemed like the way to go.
Okay. All right. So you just raised something else. You were playing your own music. So that was one of my questions, which is, how did you get involved in composition in the first place?
I remember I made my first composition in like high school. And the reason why I wrote it is because I wanted to create something. The first composition was very copycat.
Okay.
Like it sounded like Chopin or something. It wasn't that big of a deal. But it was a stepping stone. I mean, I was able to orally, they say, with the ear, hear the sounds I wanted, and then I was able to communicate that on paper. And that was the whole idea of me starting. And then I was like, okay, how do I make something original? And so I started taking influences from stuff outside of classical music. So my first piece that I can call original, that's not like a copy of something, was my first solo, number one. You can find it on YouTube, actually.
Your very first piece is on YouTube.
You know, I might be able to find it, actually, Xavier, probably. Yeah, so here, I'm going to do a screen share so you guys can see. Let me see. Am I doing a screen share now?
You are, but somehow you have the wrong tab open.
How's this?
We're hearing it. The audio quality isn't great. So let's go back to.
Let's get back to the interview. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw it, but that was me when I was probably 19 or something.
A high school student or just after high school?
I was a student at Curtis.
Okay.
I think it was junior year.
So your very first piece you wrote for yourself, and it was simply because that was what was available to create and share your own ideas?
Yeah, so I saw a hole in the classical music repertoire. You know, it's either Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms,
Right.
And then you go to the Darmstadt school with like I don't know, Schoenberg or other people just like that. And then you have the modern way of writing, which is today, which is I don't know, but it's I just didn't see music that reflected what I went through as a child.
Okay.
So a little background is, and probably lots of you out there are probably similar to my background due to the modern age of technology.
Yeah.
I grew up playing video games.
Okay.
Like World of Warcraft. I'm sure you heard of that.
I have.
I played League of Legends when it first came out in 2011 or something like that. And, stuff like that. And the music was something I've been exposed to for the however amount of hours that I wasted playing those games. And it had the way the composers wrote for video games is unique because, you go to a certain room, like a boss fight or something, and it sounds scary. And then you go to another room, like a desert, and it sounds another way. So you keep switching scenarios. You keep switching scenes. So that's kind of what my music is like. It's very, very, very diverse. Okay. So I take influences from all over the world. Like one of the influences is from Persia. So Persian music. One of the pieces I wrote actually is called Tanzif Kushi Chen, and I'm probably not saying it right because it's a Persian name and I don't know nothing about the Persian language. I believe it's Farsi or something. But yeah, so that's kind of my story, and that kind of gives you an insight as to
why you got started writing. Yeah, you just weren't hearing the music that represented the influences you had. What's some other musics that you wanted to bring into your composition beyond video game music? I mean, I know I've heard some music myself that had a Celtic influence.
So that comes from a video game too.
Oh, is that right?
It's called Fate for the PC, and the stage where you're in the town and it's where you buy items and stuff like that, and it's peaceful. That's where that music played. It was a folk song called "The Clergyman's Lamentation," and I just took that song and 10 years later made a bigger piece out of it called Irish Fantasy.
I had no idea that it was actually video games that drew such inspiration. I just assumed that you had a very eclectic taste because of all kinds of different things that you had played, heard, interacted with over the course of your life. That's fascinating. I have a lot more questions about your composition, but I want to actually go back to your bass playing first, and then we can come back to the composition. How did you come to be a double bass player?
It started in middle school. Band program. They had us trying out different instruments.
Okay.
And I remember I wanted to be a percussionist. That was the goal. And I did a tryout. So they had you with no preparatory anything at all, no prep. They said, okay, can you play C scale on the marimba? And I was like, yeah, sure. I play piano, and I played the C scale. I was like, this not too shabby, not bad. And then it had me doing this thing where I do the hand and the this thing, and then they had me play patterns. And the funny thing is, like, I was always that kid in middle school who beat on the table, And I was like, I want to play drum. I'm going to play drum. And for some reason, I failed that test. I don't know.
And then they gave you double bass.
And so the double bass, I didn't have to take a test. I just picked it up, and the teacher, Miss Brown, from Hightower Trail Middle School, saw that I liked it and said, okay, you can play bass.
So you said middle school. So that's what age, like? I
was 11.
I was going to say 12. And then by 19, you're at Curtis, arguably the hardest conservatory to get into in the world. 17. Okay. So did the bass just take off in your fingers when you first started? Did you get private lessons early on? What was that?
Yeah, very early I got private lessons. So I was doing this thing called the honors band, honors orchestra, during my first year of bass, and I really wanted to do it. So my dad and my mom got in contact with this bass player who plays with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra.
I was going to ask, so you're from the Atlanta area?
Yeah, so Marietta, Georgia is a little outside of Atlanta, and I got lucky with a great teacher.
And did you like the bass from the very beginning?
Yeah, I really did. It's I liked how I could improv on it.
Okay.
And I could focus on one line instead of two. So I had trouble with piano with the left hand and right hand, but I had this freedom of being able to hear a sound and then just play it and not have to worry about coordination like that. I'm sure I would have figured it out later on, but
did that ability to improvise, I mean, it really, maybe the way to say it is that you think the music and it just comes out. You don't have to do the physical translation. Did that come to you early on in your studying?
Yeah, and probably piano helped.
Okay.
I started piano when I was 8, and so and I guess I developed perfect pitch. And you know, I hear tunes on the radio, and then I hear it, and I would practice being able to play what I heard, and that was the fun of playing bass.
Now, people watching may not know I am a very bad bass player, but I played double bass for a long time, so I can ask some detailed questions. If people don't know, the hand position, a minor third is quite a big stretch on the bass. And so any sort of repertoire like Bach or anything fast requires an awful lot of movement with the left hand. When it came to shifting and moving high up on the fingerboard, did that just come to you very naturally? Like when you say you could just think things and play them, did the bass just make sense early on for you?
I guess the fact that I had good foundational training,
okay,
and you know, the positions and everything, I was able to get a grasp of how to do things the correct way. So okay. I can't say I was just I'm magically playing bass. No, I definitely had some good training with my first teacher, Doug Summers.
And a lot of young bass players will learn simple orchestral repertoire. Most young bass players won't ever get onto chamber music, but you must have moved into solo repertoire pretty early on. What was some of the early solo music that you played?
So actually, the first piece was for cello and piano.
Yeah.
And I played it during my first year of bass, so that was fun. I was able to see that I could actually play repertoire that's not quarter notes and half notes. So the first piece was the Vivaldi Cello Sonata No. 1.
All right.
That was fun. And, when I remember playing that, I was like, I remember just listening and feeling those chord changes and like how you go to the leading tone. For those of you who don't know how it goes, it's something like ya dee da dee da, ya dee da, da dee da dee da dee da dee da. And I was like, it sounded so emotional, like with the scales, and I really, really, really liked it. And I was able to play with piano too. That was pretty cool. I remember the chorus teacher at school saw me playing bass, I guess, and said, "Okay, let me try playing a piano part." And she had me play in front of her class. And I was thinking, after playing in front of actual colleagues at middle school, I was like, "Wow, this could be a great way to make friends." As a sixth grader. So that was another reason why I like playing bass.
So at some point you must have played one of the Bach cello suites for the first time.
Yes, it was probably the one that goes dum bum ba dum bum ba dum bum ba da da da. I don't know. I don't remember which one. Maybe the fifth, the Jig, one of those. But yeah, that was fun too. And I remember listening to Edgar Meyer's recordings for the Bach cello suites, and that's one of the Edgar Meyer's a person that really helped inspire me to play bass. So, Matt, props to him.
I was going to ask about Edgar because as a bass player that writes music that they themselves play, that is partly how he developed his career. And was he one of your teachers at Curtis?
Yes, he was.
And also with Hal? Was Hal one of your teachers?
Yep, Hal Robinson. Yep.
So you got to study with two absolutely spectacular bass players, one primarily an orchestral player and one a soloist chamber player composer. What would you like to have these two different teachers, mentors during your time at Curtis?
It was great, but the big thing that really made an impact at Curtis was the students that I was around.
Okay.
They were very open-minded with kind of my thing with playing mostly solo and composing. But I remember there was a lot of students that did like these competitions, like the Queen Elizabeth, the Tchaikovsky, the Chopin, the Mozart, the Bach, the Skriabin, whatever competition that's out there. And it was a very, very competitive environment to be in. And just listening to all the other bass players play in class, we had these bass classes like every month or something with Edgar, and just hearing people play, it was just like, wow, the expectation was very, very high. So that's also one of the things that, other than a teaching aspect, that really helped me get motivated to play on a higher level.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And when you talk about the other competitions, it's actually something that may have drawn you to YCA, that our auditions don't have restrictions on instruments, that we will hear an unusual soloist. And is that partly what drew you to young concert artists in the first place?
Yeah, it was there are competitions, where you play a concerto and then you play in front of the orchestra. It's a lot of that. But with YCA, it's like you can play a recital program, and I was kind of interested in doing something like that. Being able to play like an hour and 30-minute recital, that was a challenge for me. I wasn't expected to do something like that from the beginning, but it was a milestone that I always wanted to achieve, and YCA was it.
So there must have been a point either during Curtis or possibly earlier where your interest really diverted to recital music and further away from orchestral repertoire, because most bass players end up playing in orchestras, and that's not been your path. So what were some of the moments that drove you towards that other repertoire?
Well, the main thing we have to remember is I said this in the beginning of this call, that I really like to create.
Right. Yeah.
Be creative, and of course you can be creative when you're playing an orchestra, but not as creative as you want to be. I just didn't see a future of me playing lots of orchestral excerpts. There's a great job opportunities for playing an orchestra, but I like being able to write solo for bass and do all these really cool things that I can't do otherwise.
Well, so a little over a year ago, I heard you in recital at the Morgan Library and Museum, and it was a wonderful recital. And you played one of your own compositions, and it was a wonderful piece, and it was very technically challenging, and you played it with great ease. I mean, you are a true virtuoso on the bass. I imagine there's very few things that you couldn't do. But at some point, you started writing for other people, and it's a little more, I don't know if it's more challenging, but when you're writing for yourself, you know exactly what your fingers can do. How is it different when you're writing for other people's fingers?
Well, I have to tell you this. I've only written for string players and piano.
Okay.
I've played the piano, first instrument, and I can kind of visualize, it's just how the cello works and how the violin works. I know the violin can do lots of things, maybe not so much a bunch of parallel fifths and fourths. Learned my lesson the hard way. But yeah, it's fun to, when I'm writing chamber-like music, it's fun to visualize the instrumentalists interacting with one another. So for example, maybe for this piece I'm writing, I don't know if it's a secret or not. I won't mention. I won't talk too much about it in general. But the piece I'm writing currently, for example, I have one line of a melody. But what I'll do is I'll split the melody between the other side. Okay, so the violin's on this side of the stage and the viola on that side of the stage. And I'll split the melody so the violinist will play the first part and then the violas will react. And that's kind of the joy of writing for other instrumentalists, is to create this scenario where people are communicating with one another, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the joys of just listening and seeing the performance in general, you know.
Well, you say you're writing a piece, but actually, I mean, you told me earlier that you finished it today. Is that correct?
Yeah. Just this morning, I was like, okay, I have an interview. I hope I can finish this. And yeah.
Is that just a fantastic feeling when you finish a piece?
Yeah. The hardest part, I feel like, and I know, Dana, you're a composer too, so you might be able to empathize with this, is being able to come back or come back. Like, okay, so you start with the beginning, you have everything else going in the middle, but coming back to the recapitulation, finding that way to connect it, it's always satisfying. That's always the hard part for me. I don't know for you, but yeah. So
composition is a strange thing. You're working all by yourself, imagining music that's meant to be shared with people, but it's a solitary act to write it. When you actually get to see a piece come to life before an audience, does it surprise you at all? Do you learn new things about the piece, or is it exactly what you expect?
Like, you mean like when it's actually being performed?
Right. When it really comes to life, there's an audience, they've learned it, they've rehearsed it, they're playing it beautifully. I mean, to me, that's when a piece is really born. It doesn't quite exist, when it's just on paper, in my mind.
Yeah, so the thing about writing with computer software these days, I use Sibelius. This is not a paid promotion, by the way. But so when I use Sibelius, I use the MIDI, the sound, which is perfectly in time.
Right. There's no ensemble issues.
No ensemble issues whatsoever.
And no tuning issues.
No tuning. It's always 440. Like boom. Like it's boom. Like, but so there's pros and cons to the actual performance. The actual performance just sounds better because you have emotion, you have vibrato. I mean, you have a lot of things that a computer can't do. But sometimes the human factor gets in there. But I really do enjoy just seeing people interact with my music. I just love seeing people interact with one another on stage and having that conversation with music. So
I had the great pleasure last September of attending your premiere at Carnegie Hall on the main stage, Isaac Stern Auditorium. It's a great piece. You were playing as a soloist, so you couldn't just sort of kick back and be a composer. But do you remember that moment walking out on stage to have your piece premiered at a full house at Carnegie Hall?
Yeah, that was really cool. But that when I think about that time, I was so nervous about the solo part. I wasn't really focused on like the whole big picture. So I didn't get to enjoy it as much as I could have. But that was, looking back, yeah, I would have never imagined when I started bass, me performing my own double concerto live at Carnegie Hall. Okay, no one told me that was going to happen. So that
no one told you.
No. So that's really cool.
So we should tell people. I think there's a clip somewhere online, and maybe somebody from YCA could put it in the comments. I think there's a clip somewhere. This was a commission for the Sphinx Virtuosi, of which you were a member at the time. And so it was part of the very big, fantastic Sphinx concert at Carnegie. And it was just absolutely a packed house. And I hope you took some mental pictures, because there's got to be something that's just extraordinary about taking a bow after your own music is premiered in that space.
Yeah, it's like a big whoop. We made it. Yeah.
And so it's great. So you said you don't know if you can say who you just wrote a piece for, and I don't know if we can or we can't. But when you look into the future and stuff that you hope to write someday, do you want to branch out beyond strings into full orchestra, or write for other notable soloists?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Was my screen on screen share this whole time? Did I just break the thing?
No, I had to put it into the screen, so it was available. But I could let you do a screen share again. But
Oh,
no,
no, I was just wondering because my screen share was on this whole time. I was so worried.
It wasn't live the whole time. Don't worry.
I was about to freak out, man. What was the question?
The question was, you've written for strings, and often you've been part of the ensemble. Do you look forward in the future to branching out to full orchestra, other soloists, wind instruments? Where do you see composition going for yourself?
I would love to write for a full, like, winds, brass, percussion.
The whole thing.
Right now, I just finished my first piece that's not featuring the bass, but it's for string orchestra. But
Okay.
that I do see when I'm writing. There's a limitation when you're writing for just strings, because when you have all these different instruments, there's so much capability of having so many lines and so much more communication with winds versus strings versus percussion like that. I love having more of that. So we'll see.
There's a question that came in about your bass composition, and then I want to go and talk to you about some of the businesses you've started. So here's a question from Jason Heath. What's the next solo bass piece you'll be putting out?
He said, when's the next solo bass piece?
What is the next solo bass? And he specifically has been working on the Irish Fantasy, and he's absolutely loving it.
So those of you who don't know Jason Heath, he's the owner of Contrabass Conversations and the Double Bass blog. He's a big double bass figure. And it's amazing to see him visit the stream. So thanks for sticking around, Jason. So the next solo bass piece, a lot of people have been asking for solo bass pieces for me that are playable in general. Like, a lot of my pieces are hard. So like, okay, when are you going to write that piece that's a little more low key? So I think that'll be my next piece. So yeah, Jason.
If you're used to playing virtuosic music and that's what you're used to writing, it's actually very hard to write simple music.
Yeah, because when I write solo bass music, the idea is to create a full work like that you would typically hear like an orchestra play where it makes sense, but if you just hear the solo line, it wouldn't make sense. I have a lot of bass notes and treble notes playing at the same time in chords. So there's a lot of yeah, like a lot of chords going on, and I think that's what makes it difficult, and the high notes too. So simple music, I look forward to figuring that out.
I actually think writing something really elegant and simple is one of the hardest things, and so best wishes as you tackle it.
Yes.
So you said something fascinating a little bit ago, that you were drawn to recital music because you wanted to create, and that gave you a vehicle to play your own music. And as I've gotten to know you over the last year, I feel like you're first drawn to just the creative activity. And it could be writing music, it could be a new challenge in music or performing, but it also could be creating a business, creating a new idea for how to share music online. So there's too many things to talk about, but tell us some of the things that you've started and created online.
So a little backstory about this kind of different things that I've been doing. When I graduated Curtis, that was in 2016. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I wasn't even part of Young Concert Artists then. I was part of Astro Artists, but yeah, I wanted this. There wasn't much going on, so I had to figure out what I'm going to do with this time that I have. So I started writing just to be writing. And what I would do is I would go to random places in Philadelphia where you could walk in and sit down with air conditioned and eat, maybe eat at the food court. I visited a lot of food courts. Okay, there's 30th Street Station, Comcast Center, Liberty Place Mall. A lot of these places where I can sit down, get on my Sibelius, and just write. So about a year of that, but I did remember when I visited like the Comcast Center, like because Comcast is a cable company that provides internet, phone service. I'm using Comcast right now. It's great. But there's a lot of like executives and stuff that sit out in the food court, like top execs in the C-suite, the corporate suite, big names, and I'm listening into these conversations, and they're talking about stuff like the KPI indicators in the HR department, and we need to know the supply and demand of the supplier and Thailand. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so that kind of got me interested in business in general. So I started picking up some books from Amazon on I remember my first book. It's somewhere over there. It's like supply chain management.
Okay.
Right. I'm a bass player who graduated a music conservatory and reading books about supply chain management. So that was pretty cool. It talked about how you go from raw resources to an actual product and everything in between with the shipping and logistics. And I was like, oh, okay. And maybe I should study economics. So I bought a book on microeconomics and learn about supply and demand and that cool stuff and finance and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, I wonder if I can use these skills to do stuff and hopefully tie it with music. So my first thing was I created an app called Music Air. It might still be on the Play Store. I think I took it down, but that was one of my biggest projects, was creating an app where you could search all the airline musical instrument policies easily. So we go to Delta and they try to screw you over like they've done to me multiple times. You can just go to the app, click Delta, pull up your musical instrument policy, show the gate person or whoever that, yes, under 70 pounds, I can take my instrument on the plane. Right?
So let me just pause and explain. For the non-musicians listening, and we hope there are many, traveling with an instrument is a nightmare. And so you created an app so that any musician can have ready information. So if they need to advocate at the gate, they have the information handy.
Yes.
And it was called Air?
Music Air.
Music Air.
Yes.
And I'll have to go see if I can get it, but you're not sure if it's still there. So that's
the problem with that was the airlines keep changing their musical policy links. And it's based on links, so I don't know if it'll work.
So that's like any entrepreneur. There was a problem, you wanted to solve it.
Yeah, and I'm sure I could solve that problem too, but I just moved on.
Okay. So what was next, or what else have you done?
So I remember I created this business that was completely unrelated to music. I was trying to sell airplane pillows, like like the ones that go around your neck.
Yep.
I was like, I wonder if I can use my experience and build a website or storefront where I take pillows from a supplier and sell it at a retail price. So that was called upillows.com. I don't know if that exists anymore, but I lost so much capital in that. Like I had to recover. That was it was a good idea because I learned a lot of lessons. So after that, I was like, how can I create a business that is related to what I do as a musician?
Right.
And so I started doing stuff on XavierFuller.com. I started selling my solo music finally, PDFs of that, and I got sales. That was pretty cool. It seemed like people were interested in that. And then I came up with this concept of a bow called the Fiesta carbon fiber bow, which is really cool.
First off, XavierFoley.com, if anyone wants to go check it out. And you started selling music, and then you came up with a bow. Say it slowly. What's the name of the bow?
Fiesta, like
Party, yeah.
The holiday fiesta celebration, and the carbon fiber bow.
So it's a carbon fiber bow.
Yeah.
What's the advantage of the carbon fiber?
Carbon fiber is great because it's very strong,
Right.
and it doesn't really it's not really effective when you play outside. So there's a lot of outside concerts like Aspen or Vail or something like that. And, you know, when I played at Aspen, it was a great time, but I just noticed like a lot of things happen that changes the way the bow is shaped. That's just how wood works.
Right. Good wood does not like Good wood does not like aspen.
No. The humidity is so low and dry. It'll change. No doubt about that. So carbon fiber is nice, and it lasts as long. And I have a tendency to hit my bow on random things like my chair or the side of my bass, and I don't have to worry about that because it's strong, and I don't have to worry about devaluing or anything like that. So I was like, you know, maybe let me start selling carbon fiber bows, and so I came up with the Fiesta carbon fiber. And fun fact, it's the only bow. Here it is. It's the only bow in the market, I believe, that has this hair that has black hair in the middle.
Okay.
And white hair on the outside. Have you seen this before, Daniel?
What kind of hair is that?
That's another advantage in the marketplace, as they say. So yeah. So after that, if we want to keep going.
Sorry, in the whole thing, how many carbon fiber bows have you sold so far?
Around 25 or more. Something like that.
And you don't make them; you just help supply.
Yeah. So I have a relationship with a supplier who makes them by order. So they're not like made in batch, you know, where you can get like variances. So there's more attention paid to the manufacturing process. And that's what I like about these bows is they're not just off the shelf of a like Walmart or anything like that. So.
Yeah, they're not off the shelf Walmart bows.
No. Yeah, they're paying attention. So usually, like when you manufacture belts or something like that, like carbon fiber, you use a machine. You make them in batches of 20 and 40. Yeah. And the thing about that is when you're working with the machine, like you want to just get the job done, like 20, 40, 60, 80 bolts. You're not really paying attention to the process. As if it's one by one, you can kind of look with a glass and say, okay, you pay attention more when you do things one by one. And so that's that.
So this actually brings me to the next sort of area I wanted to ask you about, which is, you know, there's a really robust and fantastic community of double bass players around the world. And you have now become very active in sharing videos, offering lessons, selling things like bows. And you're trying to create a whole community around your own sort of bass playing. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
After XavierFuller.com, I was like, I want to create a name that's not my name, but like we call it do business as. So I created an LLC called iPlayBass.com.
Okay.
And what that is, it's a more of a community thing. And so I had this idea where I do these weekly free online bass classes where you go up. So how it works is how it has worked is I make free etudes. Okay, and then I have a landing page. They sign up, and then I send an email after they sign up and after I have their email saying, okay, you're invited to come to these free online double bass classes where you can play the etude or play anything like Boccini or Beethoven or whatever, and people come in, and it's actually been pretty big thing. Like I remember my first class had like 30 to 40 people who signed up. That's cool. So it's really nice to see regulars come. I've been doing these things for 2 months now. To see regulars come in like every week, and we talk about life for sometimes, but it's a really cool thing. So that's kind of one of the things that I do now under iPlayBass.com. So if you want to check that out, you can just go to iPlayBass.com/class and sign up for the free online bass class.
So at this point, your sort of musical identity is bass player, composer, specifically focusing a lot on bass repertoire, but beyond that. And then also sort of somebody that's creating community learning around bass playing.
Yeah.
And they all sort of feed each other. And does it feel like a very creative life that you've cultivated?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely harder because you have to sometimes, like, I do marketing stuff too. I bought a book on Amazon on market research and marketing and stuff like that. And so I don't know. Some of you watching this may have seen some of my ads. I run ads on Google sometimes and sometimes on Facebook. Yeah, it's like I like doing these things because it's like, okay, I play a concert. So after that concert, what do I do? And I want to sign people up on Facebook and stay in touch. And like I want to make a system, like a system that you know what I mean, like not just play the concert or write a piece of music and that's be that, but like create a landing page, get the email, send an invitation to the Bass Online Free Class or the invitations to stuff like this, which is I know some of the people who are listening to this live stream are from that email listing, so that's really cool to have. So.
That's great. I should mention, we can go another sort of 5 or 10 minutes, but if people do have questions, write them in the comments and somebody will text them to me and we'll ask them of Xavier. I want to ask them some real easy sort of short questions just so we know. How many basses do you have? How many do you own and use regularly?
One.
Just one. Okay. And what tuning is it in? Is it in solo tuning or concert tuning?
Solo.
So help everyone understand, if people are not bass players, so that's different than what an orchestral bass player will play. How is it different?
So orchestral bass is two normally, top string G, D, A, and E.
Right.
Solo tuning, every note is a whole step up.
And why is that? Why a whole step up? I
think it has to do with resonance. Yeah. I do it because out of habit. When you play solo, you do solo tuning, right? But I think it's because the strings are tighter and there's more resonance.
Right, so it projects, it cuts through, it has a different of a tone.
Yeah.
And so do you have a low extension? I guess it would be a C extension, but we might say a D extension.
Yep, I do.
And so you don't have a 5-string bass? No. All right, now, as a former bass player, I know that when one buys a car, there's special considerations. What do you drive?
What do I actually drive?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The model is a 2004 Toyota Sienna XLE.
Okay, and the reason I say there's special considerations because you've got to haul that instrument around.
Yeah, I was going to say something, but that might be inappropriate for this hauling. But anyways, yeah. So the thing is, I have this minivan, but I don't really need it. I'll probably buy a new car later on. So people are able to fit basses into cars, right? You
Some
can fit
all cars.
Or the Camry if you wanted to. So you don't really need a minivan. So I don't want to promote using a big vehicle, but it sure does help moving. So.
And then when you fly, when you go to a concert across the country, what do you do for an instrument? Do you take it with you?
Yeah, I have a flight case.
So how big is the flight case? How heavy is it?
It weighs 70 pounds in total, which is very light for a flight case.
That's with the instrument inside?
Yes.
Okay.
That's very light. Some of them go up to 100 pounds.
Okay.
So my bass is a removable neck.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the new thing these days. And I can just put the neck on the side, and it's a smaller case, smaller in dimensions and smaller in weight. So I enjoy cheaper flight prices.
So when you
rub it in, but yeah, that's just.
Well, when you have a removable neck, when you get to, let's say you're playing in California, you show up, does the instrument take a lot of extra time to acclimate and for the strings to sort of stretch out? Because don't they retract a little bit when they're not stretched?
Yep.
So you just got to spend a day tuning it.
So a lot of times I don't even have a day. So for some of you who go to my recitals where I travel, a lot of times I tune my instrument between pieces.
Okay.
Right.
So it just really is, it's a compromise to be able to have a removable neck. It helps you with the travel, but then it means that you're also constantly adjusting the tuning because the strings get stretched and retracted a lot more often.
Yep, it's a great compromise.
Wow. Do you ever think back and go, I could have played the viola and life would be a lot simpler? No. Okay, that's good.
No, I haven't really thought about it. I mean, only when traveling by plane. Only when traveling, I'm like, wow, I wish I played piano. I didn't have to deal with gate agents harassing me. It's going to be normal.
All right, I want to ask a performing question, and I'll just remind folks if they do have a question, they could send it in. We are in a very difficult period without live concerts, so I imagine you haven't played in front of an audience in over 3 months. Is that right?
Yes, it's been a long, long time.
Do you miss it?
I do.
What does it mean to you to get on stage in front of a live audience?
I just feel like I'm doing my purpose. Like I like, you know how it just I feel like I've lost that purpose. Like I perform.
Yeah.
Right? These days, I write a lot of music. I've written 10 etudes during this quarantine, which is I wouldn't expect to like that. That's I don't know. That's
great.
A lot of music.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, there's no live performer. Like I record video in my room, my really tiny room, but it's just like I feel like I'm in jail, detained. You know, it's like it's not the same.
Yeah.
Daniel, Michelle Yang just asked if I can talk about social media. And so I'll say a little bit about that. Sorry, there's a gnat in my room. Before I guess we end this or.
Well, and then another question came in. We got a couple more minutes, but talk about social media. Where can people follow you? What are you doing on social media?
Well, I mean, for those of you who are viewing this, I don't know if you're on it, but follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Xavier Fully Bass, and YouTube. I think Michelle wanted me to talk about the importance of social media, but we might not have enough time.
Give me a word. Tell me something.
Yeah. It's good. I mean, Michelle wants me to talk. So Instagram. 2 years I've been off of social media before, and the reason being is because I wanted to focus on my life, and I found myself focusing on people's stuff. But there's a really, really big advantage of being on social media, which is connecting to people that you otherwise wouldn't have connected with. And a lot of these, a lot of posts I make, they're business oriented, and they have a goal, right? So if I make a post, sometimes it'll be about Bose or about my class or free etude that you can sign up for. They all have a goal in mind, right? So Facebook has allowed me to connect and have a lot of actually sales with my music. Without Facebook, I probably wouldn't make any sales with my online sheet music. So for those composers who are listening, and we're like, oh, I don't want to be on Facebook. I don't want. It's a lucrative tool, and I'd recommend it. So actually, a funny story. I was looking at a live stream of a video someone was doing at some random place, and there was a guy who worked for this piano company, and he has marketing experience. And I saw him comment. I clicked on his profile, and I saw he was a marketing executive or something like that. I was like, "Hey, man, you want to chat about some ideas?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, man." I was like, "Yeah, boom."
It's an incredible connector, and for somebody that, I mean, you're brilliant on stage and as a composer, and you're using these tools as a way to actually connect with people and really cultivate a direct relationship with your audience, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great.
2 questions that come in. I want to make sure we get to those, and then we may sign off. First, from Barry Herndon says, how long have you been composing? And I think he's from the International Society of Bassists. And I think you told me you started when you were 18?
Composing?
Yes.
Yeah, I might have missed the beginning of the interview, but I started composing. I wrote my first piece around 16 or something like that, and it was basically a carbon copy of Mozart or something like that. It wasn't that.
So have you been writing about a decade? Is that sort of the?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. The other question that's come in is, how has your work with school kids in Philadelphia impacted your career, or has it had an impact?
Work with school kids in Philadelphia.
Have you been doing through Curtis? Did you do some work with kids in that area?
Who asked the question? Was it Mary Xavier?
It's somebody from Allegro Music Consultants.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay, so I would do community engagement with Allegro Music Consultants, and we go around schools in Philly, and I present music in a fun way for kids. I don't know, from ages 5 to high school age. I need to hear the question one more time.
How has your work with school kids in Philadelphia impacted your career, or has it had an impact? Like, how is it
the teaching aspect? I probably wouldn't be able to learn from mistakes just from, I mean, mistakes happen, right? But I've learned a lot from those high pressure scenarios of being in front of a lot of kids, and just learning how to manage situations like that in the classroom, and learning how people learn in general and take information, and how to engage people, right? When I first started doing these things, people were sleeping. You know, that's no good. So I had to be more engaged and had to figure it out. So that's helped a lot.
Yeah, I think it goes a long way to help people figure out how to communicate, how to talk about music. I mean, music exists without words primarily, and then we have to talk about it, demonstrate, interact.
Yeah.
And that's a skill to learn. So we should wrap up in a second. I wanted to just very briefly say, you know, that at Young Concert Artists, our mission is to discover amazing young people like Xavier and help get careers started, help them get out there playing concerts, thinking about things, cultivating opportunities. And we're just so delighted to have a connection with you. We invite anybody to learn more about Young Concert Artists by going to our website, yca.org. And I'll mention specifically, we have a new fund called the Keep Our Artists Working Fund, where we're raising money to give artists direct project money to keep them working during this time of no concerts. And it's supporting anything from collaborations, online performances, educational residency, all kinds of things. So Xavier, again, people can learn more about you at xavierfoley.com.
Yeah.
And iPlayBass.com.
Sure.
And it looks like there's one more. There's one more question. We'll do this question and then we will sign off for today. Amadeus writes, do you have any tips for intonation on low-pitched notes? I play the cello and find it hard to play in tune while playing on the C string. C string being the lowest string on the cello. So how do you tune the low notes?
You're asking me? I play bass, man. I play bass. Yeah, that's so that's an interesting question. How do I tune the low notes?
Well, I think, you know, sometimes, especially in ensemble, it can be a little bit hard to discern the center of the pitch in those low notes. I used to cheat in orchestra. Occasionally, I'd put my ear up to the neck if I was in an ensemble and I wanted to check, but that may not be what they're asking, and that doesn't work on a cello.
Yeah, I mean, I do that. I do that sometimes when I'm in the orchestra. When I used to play in the orchestra, I couldn't hear myself. I do that.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a little bit like your ear up to the train track.
But hey, man, whoever asked Amadeus, to tune the low notes, I don't know what to say, man. The thing is, I don't really talk much about the technical aspect. When I teach, for lessons or classes, it's usually more like ideas and philosophy, like
Okay.
Sing the line, hear what you want, know how you want to make the audience feel, produce the feeling from within before being able to communicate that feeling so that they can feel what you feel. That kind of stuff. I don't know too much about these things. I work on it. But that's a great question, and I might be able to get back with you maybe next year.
All right. Well, we invite everyone to follow Xavier and watch his career, and I can't wait till we get to see you play live again.
I can't wait to play.
I'm hoping we're going to do something together in mid-September. I know it's on the books, and hopefully that will happen. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. And Xavier, thank you so much for joining me.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. And where is my mouse?